Welcome back to HQ Spotlight. After the surprising split between John Harbaugh and the Ravens, the head coach will have his pick when it comes to his next head coaching gig. The odds are saying it'll be New York as you take a look at our sports lines projected numbers there. Although the Dolphins' connections to Harbaugh maybe has fans thinking a little differently. Tom Brady could also have his eye on this cycle's top target. Either way, we go back to the Giants because everyone saw you, Jackson Dart, whispering on the sidelines there at Ole Miss. It's either Kevin Stefanski or John Harbaugh. At least that's what the rumors are saying. Either way, the new head coach expected to take over things with Jackson Dart, maybe find a new quarterback. A lot of decisions to be made. Elsewhere, a culture change a culture change specifically on the horizon for Mike McDaniel, but kind of a full circle moment here. The former Dolphins head coach interviewing for the Cleveland Browns job, a place where he was the wide receivers coach back in 2014. There's a look at your full coaching cycle. 8 jobs up for grabs as all of these coaches either looking for new spots or trying to figure out where their next opportunity is in the NFL. Either way, we've got the coaching carousel. We just showed you on your screen. We're going to go through each team and maybe figure out which which coach you guys think is going to be a best fit. We're going to start there, Danny, in Cleveland. Kevin Stefanski, no longer the head coach there. Who do you think would be a good fit?
I'm going to go with the guy that's in the building, and Jim Schwartz, the defensive coordinator. That's a problem that they don't have, is the defense. Myles Garrett just set the record for single-season sacks. You want to keep your best player happy, and I know there's the line of thinking that you want an offensive mind to come in and work with those young quarterbacks. But I think it's going to be challenging of the quarterback room because it's a little bit of a circus with Shore Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, 2 draft picks from last year, Deshaun Watson, what is going on with him? I think it's going to be challenging to find an offensive-minded head coach, but I do think the guy they were interviewing for head coach would actually make a great candidate for offensive coordinator, Mike McDaniel. But I think they should keep Jim Schwartz.
All right, let's talk about the Ravens next. Of course, this is kind of the reason why we're having this conversation because John Harbaugh gave some coaches some thoughts there. What do you think about the Ravens position?
How about Curt Cignetti, the offensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks? It seems like Lamar will potentially have a say-so in who's going to be his next head coach, and people are asking who can get the best out of Lamar Jackson. Look what Curt Cignetti did with Sam Darnold and the Seahawks this past year. We already know the Ravens can run the ball better than almost any team in the league. Well, the Seattle Seahawks are one of the top teams in rushing in football. Now, they don't have a great yard per carry average, but they keep teams honest by rushing the ball, and that sets up the play-action pass. And we saw Jackson Smith and Jigba take off. Imagine Zay Flowers with Curt Cignetti and also King Henry and Lamar Jackson. I think that would be a great match, Lamar Jackson with Curt Cignetti with the Baltimore Ravens.
You're also, though, looking at Curt Cignetti for an opening.
I might be biased. I was telling dudes before, I played, or his dad was my offensive coordinator, Gary Kubiak. Yeah. And when he was in high school, we used to go watch Clint play high school football games on Friday nights. Yeah. So I've known him since a long time, since he was a ball boy. He is one of the hottest coaches, in this cycle that's out there. I think the Arizona Cardinals would be a great hire for him to come into. If I was Clint Kubiak, I would take the Ravens and all those weapons you're talking about too. Yeah. And I'm sure that's some of the advice he's getting from his dad is make sure you have a good situation. There are a ton of question marks on this offensive side of the ball, specifically number one, who the hecker is going to be your quarterback. Yeah. But I do think he'd be a great hire for the Arizona Cardinals.
Of course, Kyler Murray, the quarterback in the conversation there, still trying to figure out if he is truly going to be QB1 going forward in Arizona. Let's go down to our neck of the woods here in South Florida. Of course, the John Harbaugh angle, Danny. It's really hard to stay away from that report and what the Dolphins did in order to line this all up.
So that's why I'm saying they have to. Like, you cannot screw this up because we all know the real. Like, Mike McDaniel was safe, and then all of a sudden John Harbaugh becomes available, and they fire Mike McDaniel specifically to make this move. I think you become an embarrassment even more than you already are if you don't secure John Harbaugh as the next coach, and it brings in what direction are you going to go then? Probably at the bottom of this pile of coaching candidates, so you must make this work. Although if I was John Harbaugh, I'd look at the pieces on the Giants and probably say I'd rather have that young nucleus of talent than what the Dolphins are working with.
I joked about it in the lead-in, but everyone's trying to figure out what Jackson Dart said on the sidelines of Ole Miss. It certainly looked like John Harbaugh, but we can only speculate here. Let's talk about the Titans, the Falcons. Leger is where we're going next here. A good head coach replacement is who?
Mike McCarthy, a guy that has Super Bowl experience and has done a really good job developing quarterbacks. I think Michael Penix Jr., yes, he's coming off the injury, but you're bringing in a head coach to be there for the next 4, 5, 10 years, right? So I think Mike McCarthy makes a lot of sense. We saw what he did. Even when Kellen Moore left, they saw the #1 offense in football for the Dallas Cowboys when he took over play calling. So too much weaponry for the Falcons not to be a top 10 offensive team, right? I think Mike McCarthy brings that in. I actually think you should pair him with Jeff Ulbrich and keep him there as a defensive coordinator because the defense has played really well. So Mike McCarthy makes a lot of sense to me for the Falcons because he can develop young Michael Penix.
Big fan of Mike McCarthy. I was there with the Cowboys when he was the head coach there. I would be excited to see him get another gig there. In the meantime, the Titans certainly could use a next head coach. Leger, feels like they got a lot of good places. The end of the season gives you a little bit of confidence going forward, but they need a leader, obviously.
And that's why I'm going with Brian Flores. I know what people will say with Cam Ward being a quarterback, you need an offensive-minded guy. Correct me if I'm wrong, DK. Didn't they just have an offensive-minded guy as a head coach in Brian Callahan? You need a leader of men. And Brian Flores has come out and been vivid about learning from his experience as a head coach from Miami. The Viking players, they vouch for him. They love him. They love this guy. They don't want him to leave that building. That lets you know that's a great leader of men. And you see what he's done with the defenses with the Minnesota Vikings. They've been a top 10 defense almost every year. He's been the coordinator there. I think he's learned a lot from his first time being a head coach down in Miami. I think he would change the culture for the Tennessee Titans. To me, that's the number one thing that they need to do, change the culture down there in Nashville.
Let me ask you this, Danny, as our quarterback here on set. Brian Flores came under a lot of scrutiny. What was it, last year when the Tua report came out that their relationship maybe wasn't what we all thought it was going to be? When you look at a young quarterback like Cam Ward, who already mentally I think is a little bit different than what Tua brings, but you do have a Brian Flores. Do you think this is a situation where they need a quarterback whisperer, or to Leger's point, can Brian Flores step in and be that guy?
It drives me nuts when teams try to hire specifically for one player.
Crazy.
Right? I mean, we realize that this is the greatest team sport that we know in this country, maybe the world. You need to find somebody that can set a culture, that can set a tone, that's going to have a very clear vision, and then you trust them, if it's not an offensive mind like Brian Flores, to go hire an offensive mind that's going to instill your principles, your values, your culture, and then your offensive philosophy. So I totally agree with Deuce. Go find the best man for the job, regardless of what position, what side of the ball he's on, and then you trust him to be the leader of men and to set the tone for the whole organization.
To that point, DK, I would pair him with Brian Daboll. Right, they both worked together in New England. He's been a great offensive coordinator. We saw what he did for Josh Allen. I think Brian Daboll and Brian Flores would be a home run hire together for the Tennessee Titans.
Brian and Brighton in Tennessee could be interesting. Let's talk about the position that the latter Brian left open, though, up there in New York. Jackson Dart. Danny, I'm curious how this changes, too, because I know your feelings on Jackson Dart and if he's the guy or not. Do you pick a head coach based on Jackson Dart, or are you going with someone just based on the open position?
I think if I'm the Giants, I would love to take the swing at John Harbaugh, right? Okay. But as you heard before, I think the Dolphins cannot afford to lose him. So I do think you bring in somebody with stability, two-time coach of the year in Kevin Stefanski. Okay. And this is more than just the offensive mind and the fact that he's worked with quarterbacks. I think he's a really good football coach, too. So I think it kind of fits the mold. And I do think the Giants' job is attractive. I know I've been, I question, God forbid, that Jackson Dart is the future. But he's shown you a lot of flashes. Like, I see him as like a piece of clay that you could mold and help develop. And if you're able to do that, look at the way we're talking about Ben Johnson and what he's done with Caleb Williams. Look at what we're talking about, the job that they've done in Carolina around Bryce Young. Like, you have an opportunity, if you're Kevin Stefanski, to really mold and develop and take Jackson Dart to that next level so that he is your future. And you got Malik Neighbors coming back. I think there's a lot of pieces on this Giants team that make it very attractive.
For those of you at home who don't know, you're not allowed to say anything bad about Jackson Dart. Otherwise, the internet will come after you. Maybe for teammates as well, too. All right, so the jury's still out on Jackson Dart. I wonder how the Raiders are feeling here. It's kind of feeling like Fernando Mendoza. You are a Raider in the upcoming weeks here, but he needs a head coach, Leger.
I wonder what DK thinks about this one. Oh, Curt Cignetti. And I say that because when you look at the Raiders team, it's almost like a blank canvas. There's so many positions that need to be filled. Well, it was like that for Cignetti when he got to Indiana, and he's a program builder. And I know a lot of people would be like, I don't know a college coach jumping to the NFL level. DK, one thing we know, the college game is closer to the NFL game as it's ever been in history, right? Because of NIL, every year's free agency. So Cignetti would know how to handle that, right? And again, he's a program builder. He's a guy that has a fundamentally sound team. That's what the Raiders need. Now, I know Tom Brady will have a hand in it, but you also talked about it, Haley. The number one pick most likely is going to be Fernando Mendoza, a guy he's worked with already. So I think it makes a lot of sense because what he's been able to do at Indiana, few coaches in the nation would be able to do.
Hold on, let me Google it. Oh, that's right. He wins. I mean, that's all he does. I mean, he said to do it.
Correct.
He has won at IUP. He won at Elon. He won at James Madison. He's won at Indiana. I agree with you. I just think it's up to Curt Cignetti because I don't think it's about the money for him. No. Like, he's already making a boatload of money. He could make more money with the Raiders. I think it's about his personal goals.
Correct.
Like, when he got into coaching, did he dream of winning a Vince Lombardi trophy or did he dream of winning a national championship?
Yeah.
And if it's a Vince Lombardi, then take the jump now, like while your name is hot. I just don't know if that's ultimately what his goal is. And there's a blurred line between college football and the NFL right now. So maybe he wants to take a crack and be the best ever. If he does, I would not bet against him.
And my thing is, if they win the national championship this year, they maybe lean to, like, that's his next goal. Yeah. I want to win a national championship in the NFL. Like, that would be dope to be a champion in college and NFL.
And good news for him, that championship game is on the horizon. He's got a lot more to focus on right now than just that Raiders job. We'll get to the Raiders side of it in a little bit. Fellas, appreciate your time.